Crime dramas in New York, like Law and Order, have been city institutions for decades now. But ripped from the headlines doesn't always show the whole story of New York crime scene investigation. Because behind the police procedurals are the forensics you don't see, like the ones who study insects at crime scenes.
One of the reasons why I got into this field is being able to kind of be the bug whisperer. There's not a lot of people that understand and can interpret what the insects tell you in an investigation because they do tell a story, and a lot of times they're overlooked. You know, people lie. The bugs don't really lie.
This bug whisperer is Jennifer Rosati, assistant professor at John Jay College and forensic entomologist. Entomology is the study of insects. Forensic entomology is studying insects for criminal investigation, and it's not a job for everybody.
Do I take the work home? Absolutely. There's been many times where I've taken the work home with me. I have traveled on the subway with maggots in my pockets. Yes, I have. And for the most part, working in the city is great because people mind their own business. They really do. I mean, they might go, oh, something smells over here, but then that's it. And trust me, there's been worse smells on the subway than anything that I bring into it.
When I hear forensics, and I think a lot of people hear forensics, they're thinking Law and Order and CSI. Is that what this is really about?
So forensic entomology is primarily used in homicide investigations, but that's not the only use for it. Insects can be very helpful when you're looking at the agricultural industry. There's a lot of insects that can infest those grains. So the source of that contamination and finding where that contamination occurred. And then with respect to urban entomology, a lot of times you're dealing with pest species. So you can deal with termites and their feeding activity that can potentially disrupt the structure of a house or of a building. All of that would fall underneath forensic entomology as well.
But the bread and butter is indeed homicide investigation. It may seem a little morbid, but you can figure out when a body died based on understanding the life cycle of the insects that have grown on it. Specifically, the life cycle of the blowfly.
Well, believe it or not, you encounter blowflies all the time. When you're walking your dog in the summer and it decides to take a you-know-what, chances are if you stay around in that area for a few minutes, you're gonna see blowflies. And they lay eggs on a dead, decomposing resource. They can lay eggs within minutes of death. And so by looking back at their developmental cycles and the temperature at which the crime occurred, you can work back to try and figure out when those eggs were laid. And in ideal situations, and in most situations, that time that egg was laid corresponds very tightly to the time of death. A lot of times we take a live sample and we bring it back to the lab and re-rear it. And what that means is that we want to continue its development so that we have an adult emerge out so we can determine what species we're dealing with.
Unlike the investigations on TV, according to Rosati, it can take weeks or even months to identify an insect, rearing the eggs in the lab until they hatch and grow. And one thing they don't show you on TV is that in order to understand the bugs at a crime scene, it means always keeping a lot of bugs on hand to study in the lab. Like a lot of bugs.
So a typical day in the lab is actually doing research. For me, it's either teaching or it's supervising students, checking in on their research, rearing flies, meaning we've got colonies that need to be taken care of, so we need to make sure the adults are fed, the larvae are fed, they're happy. I always tell my students a happy maggot means that you've got a happy supervisor.
To be sure, day to day it is indeed more research than it is Law and Order. Rosati assists on about 2 to 3 cases per year at this point in her career, so it's not all morbid. And Rosati keeps it all in perspective.
The person at home that's watching and thinking, oh my God, I'd never be able to do this, and I would say this job isn't for everybody. But to me, insects are beautiful. You put them underneath a microscope, you see the shine to them, especially the blowflies, and also there's an important aspect to it. Somebody's got to do it, right? Somebody's got to play with maggots, somebody's got to play with dead bodies and pick the bugs off the dead bodies, and that just so happens to be me. So it isn't for everybody, but I enjoy it.